All right, here we go. Welcome to the Governor's Council on Women and Girls. And today our focus is a leadership panel discussion on increasing the numbers of women firefighters in Connecticut. And we have such an impressive lineup of women leaders with us representing different ranks within our firefighter units. I will say that back in 2020, the National Fire Protection Association estimated that there were over 1 million career and volunteer firefighters in our country. Of that number, 35% were career firefighters and 65% were volunteer firefighters. When it came to gender, an astonishing only 9%, or 89,600, were women, with 17,200 serving as career firefighters, the remainder as volunteer firefighters. And when it came to age, 50% of the firefighters were between 30 and 49 years old. And it was interesting to see that the 2020 numbers, when you looked at them, comparing them to 2018, because in 2018, the overall number of firefighters in all categories were higher. But what we're really going to focus on today is female firefighters. And we know that there were 93,700 women firefighters, 4,100 more than in 2020. And at this time, because there's really no central reporting agency in Connecticut that has the responsibility of tracking firefighter statistics, it makes it hard to track numbers and see when and how and where gender diversity growth has occurred in our state. But we know from our towns reporting to the media that women firefighters continue to make history in Connecticut. Some of our towns are hiring women as career firefighters for the first time. Women are holding certain rank positions for the first time. And there's been an increase in fire departments prioritizing recruitment efforts to diversify their units. So I'm looking forward to hearing from our panelists, who are women leaders in this career path, who are going to share with us their journey, how they got to the roles that they're in, and their ideas about how we can increase the number of women firefighters. So we're going to jump right in, and I want to thank each of our panelists for joining us. And we're going to start with a question for each of our panelists. And the question is to each of you: can you share your path into your current role in the fire service, including what was done to get you there and what inspired you to become a firefighter as you began that path? So let us see. And why don't we start with Chief Shelly Carter?
Okay, good morning. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone. And to the Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for this opportunity to discuss with you all the journey of becoming a firefighter and ultimately becoming the fire chief. And so, first of all, let me just say that the role and the road has not been easy. And, you know, I didn't plan to be here in 1999 when I joined the Hartford Fire Department. Was not the plan. And I will say this from the jump, I'm a Christian. I believe that God has a plan. And so joining the fire service was, joining the fire service. I was pushing my son down the street in 1998 and in a stroller. And I said, he saw the fire trucks at Engine 10 on Franklin Avenue in Hartford. And the guy said, bring him over. And I really felt that I didn't want to disturb such an important role that they were checking out the trucks at the time. And I brought my son over, and the gentleman that was standing on the ramp, I believe he was a new firefighter as well. He said, hey, they're looking for women, you should apply. And immediately my thought process was absolutely not. First of all, I'm the girliest girl I know. And second of all, I don't think they really want women in the fire department. And he literally talked to me for an hour to convince me to take the test. I went home and I told someone at my house, hey, they told me about this firefighter job thing. And the person said, you'd never passed the test, you know? And so of course the challenge was on. And that's kind of how I've lived my career, pretty much, just the challenge being on. I took the test, and sure enough, I became a recruit for the Hartford Fire Department. Extremely intimidating. I was very afraid. I didn't have any background in the fire service. I was a wife, I was a mom. I had no knowledge of anything. All I knew was red trucks and sirens and move out of the way when I joined the Hartford Fire Department. But I have to say that my training, my 16 weeks of training, prepared me to go ahead and jump into this career, feet first. And it literally took the time for me to grow in the fire service, learn the language of the fire service, which meant taking classes, listening to my superiors, going through the training, and beginning to realize that I could become a leader in this great profession. And so the whole idea is, even when there's doubt, even when folks say you won't pass or you won't promote or you won't, it's just a challenge on for me. And so that's kind of how I've lived my life. And so moving forward, climbing up the ranks, becoming one of the first 2 female drivers in the city's history, and then becoming a lieutenant in the fire marshal's office. And this is all due to nonstop training, nonstop taking classes, time away from my family being extremely supportive of my endeavors, and making sure that I really knew what I was doing every time I took a test, every time I took a position, putting in the extra work, making sure that I kept my firefighters safe. And then moving to the position of captain, same again, just putting in the work, learning the job, doing the job, until it was time for me to go. And so I left the fire service. I actually retired 2 years ago today from the Hartford Fire Department, and am currently the fire chief of DDS Fire and Emergency Services.
Thank you so much, Chief Carter, and what a pleasure it was for me to swear you in and for the governor to pin your badge. And it was a great moment at our state capitol, a historic moment. And we're proud to have you in that new role. And we're going to go to Captain Montique Moore, Bridgeport Fire Departments. Captain, where is Captain Moore? Captain Moore.
I am here. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
You can. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for this opportunity. And thank you to my chief, who's also here present. To follow up to what Chief Carter has said, myself as well had no desire to be in the fire service only because I wasn't educated about it. I didn't really understand much about the field. As a little girl coming up, I never saw myself on a fire truck. So it didn't look like it was anything that was for me. However, I did have family members that were firefighters, and they encouraged me to take the test. They had a huge recruitment drive back in 2001. And they're like, you got to take this test, you got to do it. And again, I was a girly girl as well. And I said, I'm too cute, I'm not going in a burning building. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. But as I became more educated about the fire service, it became something that I fell in love with because I always had a desire. My dream was to be a ER nurse. So I knew that being in that field of action and helping people and being underneath of that type of pressure was something that I was called to do. I just didn't see the opportunity in the fire service. Again, as I was educated and introduced to the career, I came into it with an open mind, wanting to learn everything that I could learn about it and just be the best that I could be at that. I came in and our list got held up for 4 years, so we didn't get on until 2006. And I took advantage of every opportunity that the department has afforded me. After being a rookie for a while, I learned everything on a truck. I spent my first 6 years of my career on a ladder company, becoming one of the very few women to be checked off to drive a ladder truck. Shortly after that, I took the test and was promoted to pumper engineer, learning everything that I could learn about operating a pump and working on an engine company. And 3 years after that, I promoted to the position of lieutenant. I went into that position, again, open-minded, learning everything that I could so that I can be the best officer I could be for my crew. I became the first female to operate in the command position as a battalion chief's aide. And in that position, I began to learn a lot more about administrative roles, staffing, command presence, and running a command board and running a fire from the perspective of a chief's eye. Shortly after that, I was transferred into the position of the aide to the fire chief of the Bridgeport Fire Department, where I really have grown leaps and bounds. I'm here because I had an open mind and I had the willpower to take on those challenges and those obstacles that come to tell us that we can't, to tell us that, you know, as a woman, that position isn't for you. The guys won't respect you. They won't listen to you. We've overcome many of those challenges. I can speak for the Bridgeport Fire Department. And I was really lucky to have the mentorship in my administration that I had, because that has helped me move on to the next level, which is captain. I am newly promoted as the first female captain in the Bridgeport Fire Department and Fairfield County altogether, actually. So it is an honor to be in this position. And as Chief Carter says, the road is not easy. It comes with its challenges, but as I see younger women and younger girls aspire to be in this role and inspire to become firefighters because they see that I'm doing it, I can go to work every day. And I continue to do what I can do to learn, to educate myself, to equip myself, to be prepared for what the job requires me to be prepared for, so that I'm the best officer that I could be and mentor I could be to my company, to my crew, and to my members. So that's pretty much how I got here. Nothing came easy. Everything took a little bit of work. There are challenges, but there's nothing that comes that we can't overcome. There's nothing that comes that, you know, there's going to be so many different things that come at us as women, not to take away from anybody else, but as women, our path and journey is a little bit different. And I just thank you again, Lieutenant Governor, for this opportunity and this platform, because to hear from all the different women that are up here, we collaborate and come together, and we're able to help to educate each other and help to navigate through those obstacles and challenges that we face as women in the fire service and as women in the leadership roles in the fire service.
Well, thank you so much, Captain Moore. And we are going to go to Lieutenant Moria Perez of the Manchester Fire Rescue EMS. Lieutenant, please share your story.
Good morning, Lieutenant Governor. Again, I'm excited to be part of this discussion. I have a little different background coming into the service. I got into public service in high school in rural Montana, where I joined the ambulance because they needed people to help. I continued that through college. And while I was going to college in Vermont, Brattleboro Fire Department kind of took me under their wing, and I took Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2, the local high school, while I was in college. That led to getting my paramedic and then applying to Manchester Fire Rescue EMS in '99. So I've been in the business for a while. I've been exceptionally fortunate and haven't met many challenges against me joining the service or being part of the department. I've been embraced with arms, and I think I've had a lot of opportunity to grow, to mentor. This isn't an easy profession. It's a very rewarding profession. It's not a profession for everyone, but I think we can absolutely offer assistance in mentoring people and understanding how to navigate the system and what it takes to be part of the system and be successful. And I think that's one of the biggest roles that we can fill, is kind of helping navigate the system. Because if you aren't familiar with it, I didn't have any family in the fire service. So if you aren't familiar with it, you don't have friends that know about it, it's kind of hard to access. But once you are in, I have to say there's probably not a better job out there if it's the fit for you. So I'm excited to be part of this discussion, and I look forward to kind of advancing, the numbers that we have, because I think we bring a lot to the whole goal of treating people and taking care of our communities.
That is great. Thank you so much. And finally, we're going to hear from firefighter Caitlin Pereira, who works in the Fairfield Fire Department.
Good morning, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I see my fire chief in here, which is great as well, and some really wonderful folks who have been supporting women in the fire service, myself and many others included. So it's really fantastic to see you here. My story is similar to Chief Carter and Captain Moore in the fact that I didn't take a traditional track to becoming a firefighter. When I was very young, about 5 years old, I started to pay attention to some of my father's gear that was in the basement of the house, as he had been a volunteer firefighter. But at the time, although Fairfield had 2 women firefighters, it was out of 100, and I had never met them. And so I just assumed that women couldn't be firefighters, right? At the time, we were still very much using the term firemen, right? It was a job that men did. And when I was in high school, I looked into the physical fitness requirement, and the first part of the test, which we call the CPAT, is wearing a 75-pound vest on a Stairmaster for 3 minutes and 20 seconds. And at the time I weighed, 110 pounds soaking wet. So I didn't even read what the rest of the test required, because my assumption was that I could never pass that. So took the more traditional path, went into education, and it was a great way to help people and a great way to problem solve, but something was always missing. And thankfully, about 5 years ago, I met some firefighters, and I was having sort of a fangirl moment and said, I've always wanted to be a firefighter. And they're like, well, why don't you do it? And I said, well, because I can't. And they're like, well, that's ridiculous. And so I really started thinking about it more and figured out what needed to be done, written tests and getting ready for interviews. The physical fitness component was a challenge for me. I have not been shy about the fact that it took quite a few attempts for me to pass. But once I did, I was very lucky to be able to be offered a job in the Fairfield Fire Department, because Fairfield's where I grew up and where I live now. And it's really amazing to see it come full circle. Last year, I got to march in my first parade as a firefighter. And I can remember being a kid watching the Memorial Day parade and thinking the firefighters were absolutely the coolest. And so to be there marching in my uniform was really a dream come true.
That is a great story. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn to Chief Carter. Chief, you're the first Black female fire chief in New England, which is why we were so proud to have that historic swearing in moment at our state capitol not long ago. And this is really a huge accomplishment and gives visibility for other women around you to move up the ranks And you currently have a very interesting nonprofit called Girls Future Firefighter Camp that's 100% free, and it's an interactive training program that focuses on empowering young women between the ages of 13 to 18 to think about a career in public safety. And it's been inspirational to see the classes of young women graduating from your classes. And tell us what your camp does and how you think it's changed the perception of those young women who've participated, and what do you see happening with them in the future? I hope that it has inspired them to pursue careers, but please tell us more about it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for the question. So Girls Future Firefighter Camp was born out of the need and actually a little bit of fear of me leaving the fire service. I was 15 years into the job and I said, wait a minute, I can leave in 5 years. And I looked around and there was not a whole lot of ladies that looked like me in the fire service in Connecticut. So of course we have the numbers. Hartford was an anomaly. We had, I think at the time, about 15 to 17 women, which was a lot. But most departments only had 1 or 2, or if at all. And so I began to wonder, how have I impacted my community? How have I left a footprint, a pathway for ladies to join this amazing career that I'm a part of? And so I began to talk to my husband and he was like, do a camp. And I'm thinking, I don't know how to do a camp. Was not the plan. And I began to look around. There were other camps around the country. I think there's only a few, it's not a whole lot back then. Now they're beginning to grow. But I was thinking, I don't know if I can do this. So without any help from some of the folks that I thought would help, it was time for me to go ahead and step out and try to create this platform for young ladies to learn about this career. What Girls Future Firefighter Camp looks like is a young lady aged 13 to 18 will come into the program, and we literally take the absolute basic knowledge of the fire service. So this is the equipment, this is what it looks like. They get to wear the uniforms, they get to handle the equipment, they get to advance lines. So we teach them operations, we teach them code enforcement and fire investigations and law enforcement, and anything that I have touched in my career: public information officer, Homeland Security, state emergency operations, anything that I had the opportunity to touch and to learn. I am teaching these young ladies. My amazing staff of volunteers have been phenomenal. Women from across the state, women from across the country have flown in to be a part of Girls Future Firefighter Camp. The reason, there's a twofold reason why this camp, number one, is doing so well, and number two, it's growing. The first reason why it's doing so well is that these young ladies get to know that they can be anything they want to be. There is no boundaries. You don't have to fit into a mold. You don't have to fit into a box, because none of us, everyone has their own personality. Everyone has their own way of thinking, but there is one task needed to be completed. And this is the task, and that is to put the fire out for most cases, or to solve that arson or whatever. And so I take your personality. We want to diversify the departments. We want to diversify the fire service. Take what you have, your gift, bring it to the fire service, bring it to emergency services, whether it's police, fire, EMS, and Homeland Security. Bring it, because what I need to do as an individual will add a flavor that may not be the same flavor as our Lieutenant Perez's, or as Captain Moore, or as Firefighter Pereria. So I teach these young ladies that you are very special and we need you. That's the first point. The second point is, not just is this camp not only for the girls, it's for the women that teach it. And so how amazing is it to inspire young women or women from across the country. I've had the fire chief from Chicago show up to the camp. I've had a fire chief from, I believe she was from Oklahoma, fly in to be a part of the camp. Women from across the state, FDNY and Philadelphia, they've all come together, and that is to inspire each one of them as well. You know, it's not easy being a female in the fire service. So if I can collaborate and communicate with the women that come into the department, into the camp, and empower them as well, I send them back to their departments and they feel a little bit more confident. And so what fire chief would not want to send a woman to a program that will just empower her and give her that little bit of extra strength and knowledge that she needs to go back to her department and share that information with her department. And so it's not just for the girls, but it's for the women that come. It's completely free. My goal is to have it trickle into the Connecticut Fire Academy, where they have the introduction to the fire service program. The reason why it's free, because the young ladies that we typically serve cannot afford to pay money to go to a camp. So we've been blessed with my husband and I, our pockets, and with some donations. But my goal, hopefully, is to have that pipeline to the introduction to the fire service. And then from the introduction, the pipeline into the fire service. So the young ladies that we have had in our program, we've had several become volunteer firefighters or cadets in their towns. We've had a couple become police cadets. We've had some that have already passed their EMT certifications. And we've had a couple of ladies that became dispatchers and move into the career of going to school, maybe at the University of New Haven, where there has a large fire science program, and other fire departments across the country. So I do it because I like it, you know what I mean? And it works.
And thank you so much for that. And will you put, if you have information that we can put in the chat, and we will make sure that the Council on Women and Girls gets that out there to our high schools across the state. And we'll put it out on our social media platforms. We're going to go to Captain Moore, who recently opened a candidate physical ability test, the CPAT test that Caitlin Pereira was just talking about, how challenging that was. And, you know, we know that the failure rate of Connecticut to have year-round facilities where firefighters practice for the CPAT has been a big deterrence in having more diversity in the profession. So Captain Moore, can you tell us why having this multiple year-round CPAT center is important, and what needs are being met by having this in Bridgeport?
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. So opening the CPAP training facility was a collaborative effort between our administration and our training department. I had the great opportunity to facilitate and manage the training facility this past year as I was the recruitment officer, the 2023 recruitment officer. What we have seen with having this training facility is an increase of women passing the CPAT. Since the inception of CPAT for the Bridgeport Fire Department, as transparency, I didn't have to take the CPAT to come on the Bridgeport Fire Department. At the time when I came on, the fire department was doing Bridgeport was doing their own agility test. So they implemented CPAT testing a little over 10 years ago. And at the exception of that, throughout maybe nine of those years, we didn't get any women on the department. We were not hiring any women, and that was because they could not pass the CPAT. So what our department did is they really dug in and found the funding and resources to create this training facility so that we can introduce what the testing was about and give people the opportunity to train, condition, and prepare their bodies to go to the state and pass the test. Like Firefighter Pereira said, you have somebody that they never put a weight vest on. and you expect them to put a weight vest on for the very first time and get on a Stairmaster for 3 minutes and 20 seconds. They had no idea what to expect. So a lot of people were going into the testing site, you know, they didn't know what to expect and were failing. So what we did is, once we implemented that training facility back in 2018, we increased hiring females by 10%. So it does show that it works by having this training facility. It's not perfect, but it is working. It is important, to answer your question, for us to have year-round testing, because our facility is not a test facility. It's just a facility to train, to prepare them to go and take the Connecticut test. It's important to have testing yearly. You say that? Did you?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I see that Chief Carter has her hand raised. Chief, would you like to ask a question about Bridgeport?
Not to ask a question, just to say that because of Bridgeport and because of the year-round need for the testing, Girls Future Firefighter Camp has started teaching young ladies about CPAT. So we have 13-year-olds going through the CPAT process due to a firefighter, Caesar, who has connected with me in our program. And he is working towards getting these young ladies ready for the test at 13 to 18 years old. So year round, I wish our Connecticut Fire Academy had a year-round testing facility, and there's funding or something that needs to be done, and I'm gonna let this go, but there's funding or something that needs to be done for the Connecticut Fire Academy to have year-round CPAT testing indoors, so that women, men, and anyone that's interested in the fire service can go ahead and pass that process. I'll put my hand down now, sorry.
Thank you, Chief.
I think that's great. Captain Moore, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Carter. Yes, so that goes to what I was going to say is, for the year-round testing, it's important that we have that because of the different municipality testing cycles. Every municipality does not test the same time of year. So only offering a test twice a year is doing our citizens a disservice, right? So I've had women that they missed the testing cycle, or they didn't pass the first go around, and now they don't get an opportunity to take the test again for 6 months, but they need this job in 3 months. So now what? I can train them, but there's nowhere for them to test after they get the training. So what I've experienced while running the center is the women that had the resources went out and took the test in other states. Is this good for those that have the resources? But what about the women that don't have the resources? Not just women, but people in general, anybody, men, whoever's taking the test, they may not have the financial resources to get a flight to go to Florida or drive to New Hampshire or go to Chicago. Those that have the funds, they're able to do that and get their CPAT outside of the Connecticut testing cycle. So that's one of the reasons why I believe that it's important that we do this year round, so that we're able to have people prepared for whenever a test pops up. Nobody knows when a department's going to be testing. So we want to make sure that we offer that to everyone. And I think that's it. Did I answer the question, Lieutenant Governor?
Yes, you did. Thank you. And I think maybe an earmark from one of our Congress people or senators might be a good way to get that fire school going all year round. Just a suggestion. And we're going to go to Lieutenant Perez because Lieutenant, you recently had the opportunity to experience an all-female crew at the Manchester in 25 years. So tell us about that, and why did it take so long?
So it was exciting to be a part of that all-female crew. It was just kind of a fluke that it happened. I was working overtime. The two other ladies, Lauren and Tia, that I were working with happened to be on the same shift. what I think is really exciting about that is, it's great that we were all ladies and we were all in the same crew, but what also is really good that everyone on that crew is exceptionally qualified. We met all the same standards that everyone else did. We just all happened to be women. And I think, that's really important to remember in the fire service, that we all meet the same qualifications. We have the same skills. We have the same strengths. We bring extra things. Everyone brings something special to the table, but it's important that we all meet a real solid base standard. And, these women have met those standards, and I was excited to work with them. And, we do get a few head turns when we show up and it's all women, but in Manchester, I think people start to get used to it. They aren't as surprised, as maybe some other places. But we know that there's only 5% female in career fire departments. So, the likelihood of it happening a lot is slim, but I think in the future it's going to increase by both mentoring women coming in and women moving up the ranks. I think that's really important, and hopefully it'll be a more common thing that's not such a big deal in the future. It will just be, and I think that'll be nice to see in the future. But it was exciting to be part of that moment, and I was glad that Manchester was able to represent that for the state. I thought that was pretty cool.
Great, thank you. So firefighter Pereira, I know you because of your run for state representative, and you were, when you were a candidate and after you were a candidate, a voice for changing our state law to allow candidates, male or female, to use the Clean Elections Program campaign finance funds for childcare when you're running for office. And I think Connecticut became the 13th state in the country to have that law because of your advocacy. So I want to know how you are using your voice to advocate as a firefighter, a female firefighter, for more women in the fire service.
Great question. So just a little background on the Fairfield Fire Department. We had hired 2 women in the early 90s, but they had both since retired when I was hired. So there were no other women on the job. And so for some of the men around me, it was the first time working with another firefighter, and that was a woman, and they were all very well-intentioned, but there was a learning curve to me being there, which is, completely to be expected. But just to sort of punctuate what we've been saying here about, about 4 to 5% of career firefighters are women. When I am around town or at an event and I'm not in my uniform or my bunker gear and someone says, "Oh, where do you work?" And I say, "Oh, I work at the Fairfield Fire Department." And they go, "What do you do there?" I'm like, "I'm a firefighter." And the faces, I mean, my goodness, I will never forget this woman when I was getting fingerprinted for the job at the police station, she's like, "What are you here for, to be a teacher?" And I was like, "No, I'm going to be a firefighter." I thought she was going to fall out of her chair. And there were 6 females in my fire academy class out of 71 of us. And 2 had come from a department that's had women consistently for a while and been continuing to hire them. But one of them was the first female hire in their department in 19 years, another in 21 years. For myself, it was over 25 years. And my amazing roommate was the first female ever hired by her department to be a firefighter. So clearly you see that, like the Connecticut General Assembly, but exacerbated a bit, there is certainly a shortage of women in the fire service. When I ran for office, it was less than a quarter of the General Assembly was made up of women. And when I started,
33% right now, so we still need more. If anybody has extra
there we
time.
go. There we go. Yes. Yes, I nominate all of these women here to run for representative or senator.
Oh, I like that.
So for me, seeing the 20, the less than a quarter and thinking about why that was, and being a mom to a 3-year-old at the time that I ran, and learning that I could pay somebody $15 or $20 an hour to knock doors with my campaign literature, but I couldn't pay someone $15 or $20 an hour to watch my daughter so I could knock doors with my own campaign literature. And we know that face-to-face contact with voters is the best way to get elected, was startling, especially because the Federal Election Commission and 11 other states at the time allowed for such expenditures. So now here we are in Connecticut. We've moved from childcare and campaign financing laws to women, and it really is there really is an opportunity now to make a big difference when it comes to maternity policies and fire departments and parental leave. And there's something that's coming to effect the end of June called the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, which, if there's going to be something that causes a change in working condition to a woman when she's pregnant, that decision has to be made between the physician and the woman. So gone will be the days when administrators and chiefs can say, okay, you're pregnant, so now you have to go on light duty, which is a huge change of working conditions, not only based on the hours that you are working, but the fact that you're typically not eligible for overtime and a myriad of other reasons. So, and it makes sense, right, that should be a decision to be made between the woman and the doctor. And yes, there's lots of research being done, thankfully, today, as it has been escalating the past couple of years regarding the impact of being in the fire service, wearing our gear, going onto the fire ground, being around combustible materials and chemicals, and what that does to mom and to baby, not only in utero, but for breastfeeding. But we're going to leave all that research to the people who are qualified to do it. And then therefore that leaves us the opportunity to advocate for women as a collective and to support those who are pregnant, because studies have shown that it is extremely difficult to be the first woman on your department who is pregnant as somebody being on the line. But you don't even have to necessarily be the first, right? Your department could have gone a decade or 15 or 20 years without having someone pregnant on the line, and things have changed. And I've had fire chiefs say to me, like, well, we'll just create our policy when someone gets pregnant. Well, no, being pregnant is stressful enough as it is, right? To think about sitting in an office and trying to negotiate what you're going to be able to have access to when you're pregnant and then after you have a child is not acceptable. And also, when it comes to attracting women to the fire service, if I'd been offered a job in Fairfield and I was thinking about having children, and before I accepted the job, I was curious, hey, what does pregnancy policy look like here? And what does parental leave policy look like here? And I go to look it up, and there's nothing that exists in the union contract. My assumption is going to be, you don't want me here. And that if I come here, you're going to have no idea what to do with me. And that would be a huge deterrent, I think, for women who are interested in having kids. So, and parental leave obviously isn't just a women's issue, it's a family issue, and that's a whole nother conversation. But certainly the opportunity to sit down, the Uniformed Professional Firefighter Association of Connecticut, President Brown has certainly been open to having conversations with people around the table to discuss the best pregnancy policies so that each department doesn't have to figure this out on their own, right? That we're looking back on best practices, and we are asking for feedback from those who are directly impacted by this. And so hopefully as a state, we can progress forward rather quickly and make sure that women looking for jobs understand what the policies would be, and that they are wanted at those jobs, and that women who are already in the fire service feel that the policies that would be in place would work for them.
Great, thank you. Chief Carter, do you have a question or a comment before we go to the next round of questions?
I think Caitlin covered everything I was just going to say. It's not a week or a month that goes by that I don't get a phone call from a fire chief saying, I don't know what to do with my pregnant firefighter. And so in the state of Connecticut, literally, if we have the opportunity to make a standard of our fire chiefs that will set up pregnancy policies, lactation policies, and stand by our harassment policies and make sure there's diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging within the fire service, within our fire academies, within our state fire academies. That way, folks that are interested in women that are interested in joining this department or joining any department will feel like they are welcome, that they are included, that they belong, and that they can be a part of this great program, this organization that we all love.
Chief Carter, you have anticipated one of the questions that I'm just going to put out, and any one of our panelists can talk about this if they would like. And the question is, what can the state be doing to increase the number of women and people of color in the fire service?
I'm going to hold on to this time for a moment. The state of Connecticut, the Connecticut Fire Academy, our fire chiefs associations. I know that there have been conversations about just making women more visible within the departments. If you are a fire chief and you do not have any females in your department, you can rent some, you can borrow some, you go out into those communities with women from other departments and say, hey, let's look into joining the fire service. Go to the high schools, going to colleges and to sports, you young women that are in sports. Go there with someone that looks like, so I just recently went to a high school event that they were talking about different careers. And I walked up to the firefighter table and I had on my street clothes. They didn't know who I was. And it was 4 white males, my fire brothers that were standing there. They didn't know me because it was in a different part of the state, had no idea who I was. Even who I am in the role that I sit, felt a little intimidated walking to that table because I was like, wait, I would at 16, 18 or college age, I would not really have considered walking to this table. And so my thought process was, let me get in touch with the chief of these 4 amazing men so that next time they have an event, they give me a call and I'll go there with them. And so as women, we in the fire service, we have an obligation. I have an obligation to take the time to help those departments that don't have women. How do we get to do this? Hey, give Caitlin a call, give Lieutenant Perez a call, give Captain Moore a call. We would be more than happy to help you. That's number 1. Number 2, just make sure that we make ourselves visible at the Connecticut Fire Academy. I think I'm the only Black female instructor there. I'm not sure, Black female, I'm not sure. But why not make it more accessible to all of the women around the state? So when we have women that are coming onto the job and are in recruit school, they can have a conversation with someone that looks like them off to the side regarding how we can get through this training. So we don't want to change any of the rules, regulations, none of that. Everybody has to do the same job. Everyone has to be trained the same way. Everyone has to learn the same way. We get it. But sometimes it's really okay to have a person that has the same similar body shape that can say, hey, this is the muscles that I used to advance that line. This is how I advanced the line this way. My good friend, Chief Perez, strong, strapping chief, but I'm 5'4". Chief Perez is a little bit taller than me. And so it's a dynamic that we can use to make sure that we are visible at the fire academies, that we're visible at the schools and other departments that do not have females in their lineups.
Great. Does any other of our panelists want to weigh in on that one?
I'd just
All right.
like to say something really quick, is I think something that's really advantageous for all departments, especially departments that have females on the line, is provide an avenue for people to come ride, even if it's for 4 hours, to just come see the firehouse, see the dynamic. you get that personal kind of ability to chat with someone, see what the challenges are, see how to overcome those. In Manchester, we do that a lot with all prospective people, through our social media. They show an interest, they come ride with someone for 4 hours, we show them the town, we show it, what the fire service is about, but that's a much more personal kind of one-on-one experience to really get all your questions asked, to also offer a lot of information on how to navigate the system. And I think, departments that are really looking to recruit to have that option available is really beneficial to the fire service as a whole. And we found it to be exceptionally successful in Manchester, but I think that's something, female specific, and can absolutely reach out to women that are on the line to provide that opportunity is really beneficial.
Great. So here's a question, and we're going to ask any of our panelists to jump in on this one. The question is, what piece of advice or information or knowledge do you wish you had when you were starting out as a firefighter? Is there something that you have now learned you wish you knew earlier? Piece of advice you think that would help others on this path?
Hello. I'll speak to that. I everything that my sisters have spoken, I second. And just to quickly say, exposure. The more we expose and educate women, and the more likely we'll gain their interest in the fire service. One of the things that I wish I would have done better is, I feel like I started a little late with some things because I was still intimidated on the fire department. The same way Chief Carter said, she walked up to that table, and where she was in her career, she felt a little intimidated. We can't really change people's heart and how they feel towards us, but I don't know, Lieutenant Governor, I don't have the solution or the answer to say what we can do outside of enforcing our policies and procedures of, harassment and all those type of things. Because even when you get on the fire service, now it's like, okay, I made it, I did it, I got here. Now I don't want to ruffle any feathers. Now I just want to be quiet. Now I just kind of want to get through my job. Now you don't want to come up against the challenges that are waiting for you when you decide, hey, sign me up. Hey, I want to be an instructor, or I want to teach, I want to lead, I want to stand in front of a classroom. I speak for myself as an African-American woman, and I want to teach 40 white males. Just think about that. It's an intimidating feeling, and everybody is not cut out for that. But how could we get them to a place where they know that they are cut out for it, and they are more than capable of doing it? Is early education, early mentorship, somebody taking them underneath of their wing, and not just a woman. We need our brothers to embrace us in a way that they are showing that they support us, so that we know that, hey, I became an officer because a male officer sat down and said, listen, if anybody could do this, it's you. He spoke life into me. And without them supporting us, it becomes very intimidating. But learning early on that I was capable, maybe I'm an EMS instructor now, but I would have done it years ago had I not been so intimidated when I first came on a job. I took an officer test years ago. I could have been an officer way earlier than when I became, but I was intimidated about leading men. So even as we become firefighters, once we get here, just learning that what's available to us and having that support, not just from the female firefighters, but from our brothers, that we can excel and do well in those areas.
So what you are saying really is about mentorship, and it's about sponsorship, and that is universal to every career, whether you are in corporate America, politics, government, business. So thank you for sharing that. Chief Carter, did you want to jump in?
Yes, and I wanted to mention all of the great programs that are out there across the country. And I know budgets are tight and times are hard for most departments around the state. But if you have an opportunity to send your female firefighters to the International Association of Women in Fire conference is coming up in September. Our FRI conferences, Fire Rescue International, FDIC, and all those types of programs. If you send one or two, that's kind of where I got my start. My fire chief said, Chief Caceres, I'll never forget it. He said, I want to send you to these programs. And I didn't think that it was even for me. But my goal when I got there was let me learn as much as I can learn. We want to empower the women that are on the job. And the best way to do it, especially if there's only one or two, send them to be in network with other females, whether within the state or outside of the state. And the last thing I'm going to say is, I just recently tried to get the International Association of Women in Fire Conference 2024 into the state of Connecticut. Unfortunately, we did not win the bid, but that does not stop us, because in 2024, I'm looking still for these amazing women on this panel and all of our amazing fire chiefs that are on the screens to support the Women Fire Conference that's going to be taking place. And so, and we're working on pulling that together in our Connecticut Fire Academy as well. And so the whole idea is to get the women that are on the job prepared, trained, ready, and empowered, so that when it's time for them to offer the job to the young girls, they're not angry, disgruntled, sad, and depressed. They're capable of doing their jobs. They're able to handle what they need to handle. They will be empowered to move up in the ranks. They will know their job extremely well and be able to train and mentor others coming along.
Caitlin, Pereira, would you like to weigh in?
Sure, mine's more of a general final.
I wonder if her screen froze.
Yeah, her
Hopefully we-
internet connection got lost.
Oh, okay. Darn, she wanted to make a final closing comment. And we are getting to the end of our discussion, and I do have a hard stop because we have all kinds of things going on at the Capitol at 11 o'clock. But I want to say thank you to our incredible panel of fire service leaders. We are so very grateful for your sharing your experience and for being role models. We really, really appreciate you. And thank you all so much for joining us. And if there's anything that the state can do to help more women in the fire service, keep me informed, and the Governor's Council on Women and Girls will be there to try to assist, because ladies, we need you. And we're very proud of our amazing panelists. Thank you for being role models for what great women in the fire service should look like. So thank you, everybody.